Welcome back to Yehoshua's Daf Yomi Shiur, where the Daf continues daily until the complete revelation of Mashiach ben David, Messiah the son of David. Today we'll be looking at Tractate Chullin, page 69b. Top of the page, with the words Be'ena parasos v'leka. Be'ena parasos v'leka. The Gemara explains, in order for the fetus to be permitted, I require that it have hooves, and a dove-shaped fetus does not have hooves. Elamiyata kalut b'mai pa litzar otonu dver b'shmoel ki Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai parsa b'mehema techelu. Gemara objects, if that is so, that the fetus is permitted only if it fulfills the conditions mentioned in that case. Then a fetus with non-cloven hooves found inside a cow's womb should be forbidden, whereas the Bright decided on 68b states that it is permitted. The Gemara answers, this is as the school of Rabbi Yishmael taught in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. Each phrase in the verse is taken as a sufficient condition. Furthermore, the term hoof can be understood independently of the phrase cloven into hooves, and is referring to a non-cloven hoof. Accordingly, the verse can be interpreted as teaching an animal that has a hoof in the animal you may eat, and teaches that even a fetus with a non-cloven hoof is permitted. Rav Shimi bar Abashi amar le'olam kedegamet mikoro v'tekra kashiloch ein mamirin hamani Rabbi Shimon hi Dimakish Tamur Lamaisel. Ma Maiserin Beiborim, Uborim, after Mura in Hegis Beiborim, Uborim. Rav Shimon bar Ashi said, actually, the halacha that the fetus and its severed species are permitted should be derived as you previously said, meaning from the phrase, an animal in the animal. And with regard to that which posed a difficulty for you, meaning the Mishnah in Tamura that states one cannot substitute a non-sacred animal for the fetus of a pregnant offering, that difficulty can be resolved by saying, in accordance with whose opinion is this, it is the opinion of Rabbi Shimon who compares substitution to the animal tithe, just as the animal tithe does not apply to limbs and fetuses, but only to live animals that can walk, as it is stated, whatever passes under the rod, Leviticus 27:32, so too substitution does not apply to limbs and fetuses. Umina temro ditnan, Amar Rav Yossi v'alo b'mikudashim oimer raglo ze oilo, zu oilo, kula oilo af keshiyom ha'regel shel zo tachazo tehei kula tamura tachteho. The Gemara asks, and from where do you say that this Mishnah expresses the opinion of Rabbi Shimon? The Gemara explains, as we learned in the same Mishnah in Tamura 10a, Rabbi Yossi says, but with regard to consecrated offerings, if one says the leg of this animal is a burnt offering, then all of the animal is consecrated as a burnt offering. Accordingly, even with regard to substitution, if one says the leg of this non-sacred animal should be substituted instead of that offering, the entire animal should be a substitute in its stead. Leman, kome hadar le, ilim Rabbi Meir Rabbi Yehuda, mi isluhu haisvoro, yatani yachaloi mer ragla shel zo oilo, teikula oilo, Talmud lomar, kol asher yitem mimenu Hashem ye koidesh, mimenu koidesh v'lo kulu koidesh. Rabbi Yossi clearly disagrees with the opinion that the substituting a limb is not possible, but Rabbi Yossi's formulation indicates that even according to that opinion, if a single limb is consecrated, then the entire animal becomes consecrated. The Gemara clarifies to whom is Rabbi Yossi responding. If we say he is responding to Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, do they accept this reasoning? But isn't it Tana Braita? One might have thought that in the case of one who says the leg of this animal is a burnt offering, all of it will be a burnt offering. Therefore the verse states, and if it is an animal of those that they bring as an offering to the Lord, anything of it that one gives to the Lord, it shall be sacred. Leviticus 27, verse 9. The verse indicates that the part of it that one gives will be sacred, but all of it will not be sacred. Okay. Where were we? I lost the place, I'm sorry. Please give me a moment to find it. Okay, here we are, yeah. A non-sacred animal with a consecrated limb may not be sacrificed. Accordingly, one might have thought the consecrated limb may be redeemed and thereby transferred to non-sacred status. Therefore, the verse states, it shall be sacred, indicating that it shall remain as it is. How is this possible? The animal should be sold for the needs of burnt offerings, meaning to an individual who will sacrifice the entire animal as a burnt offering, and the payment received for the animal will be non-sacred, except for the payment received in exchange for that one limb that is consecrated. This is the statement of Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon Omrim, Minai lo miraglo ze oilo te kulo oilo Talmud lomar yihye l'rabo yises kulo. Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon say, from where is it derived in a case of one who says the leg of this animal is a burnt offering, that all of it becomes a burnt offering? The verse states it shall be sacred. This serves to include all the animal, indicating that it all becomes sacred. Leman il Rabbi Meir Yehuda. The Gemara reiterates its question. To whom is Rabbi Yossi responding? Rabbi Yossi clearly disagrees with the opinion that if a single limb is consecrated, then the entire animal becomes consecrated. If we say that he is responding to Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, do they accept this reasoning? Rather, isn't Rabbi Yehuda responding to Rabbi Shimon? As the Gemara suggests above, in resolution of the difficulty from the Mishnah in Temura. Lo, Rabbi Yossi, Taima, Dinashe, Ka'amal. The Gemara responds, no. It is possible that Rabbi Yossi is not responding directly to any other opinion. Rather, he stated his own reasoning without reference to that of another sage. Consequently, his statement affords no proof. From that the Mishnah in Temura expresses the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. And now for a new Mishnah. Ha-mivakeres ha-mekasheleled mechader ever mashlichel klovim yetzeru boi harei ze yikavel mifteres min b'cholere. Upon its birth, the firstborn male offering of a domesticated animal is automatically consecrated with firstborn status, and it is prohibited to derive benefit from it. Furthermore, if it dies, it may not be discarded, but must be buried. If an animal that was giving birth to a firstborn male was encountering difficulty giving birth, and in order to alleviate the difficulty one wishes to terminate the birth, he may cut up the fetus limb by limb and cast it to the dogs. Since the fetus was not born, it is non-sacred and does not require burial. If a majority of the fetus had already emerged, it is considered to have been born and is therefore consecrated. Consequently, if one cut it up, it must be buried, and the mother animal is exempted from having firstborn status conferred on any future offspring. Okay, that's the Mishnah, and now the Gemara. Itmar yotzer shlish machal goy, chazer yotzer shlish acher, Rav Huna Amar Kadosh, Rab Amar Kadosh. An Amoraic dispute was stated with regard to the case in which 1/3 of a firstborn fetus emerged from the womb, and one sold it to a Gentile, and then another third of the fetus emerged. Once the majority of the fetus emerges, it is considered born. The halacha is that the fetus partly owned by a Gentile is not consecrated as a firstborn. In this case, the firstborn was sold to a Gentile only after it had already partially emerged from the womb. Rav Huna says it is consecrated, while Rabbah says it is not consecrated. Rav Huna Amar Kadosh, Kosovar Nimefreya, Kadosh V'cheven Nafek LeRuben. Agalai mil sel mafreya dmi korah v'kadosh The Gemara elaborates. Rav Huna says it is consecrated as he maintains that a firstborn is consecrated retroactively from the moment the first part of its body emerges from the womb. And therefore, in this case, once most of it had emerged, it became clarified retroactively that it had already been consecrated from the outset. And so, with regard to that which he had sold to a Gentile, it arises that he did not actually sell anything at all. Since it had already been consecrated, he did not have full ownership of it to be able to sell it. Rabba Omar Eino Kadosh. Rabba says it is not consecrated as he maintains. A firstborn is consecrated from that point forward. Meaning, only at the moment the majority of it emerges. And so, with regard to that which he had sold to a Gentile, it arises that he had sold it properly. Meaning, the sale was valid, because at the time of the sale, it had not been consecrated. Accordingly, by the time the majority of the body emerged, it was already partly owned by a Gentile, and that prevented it from being consecrated. The Gemara notes, Rav Huna and Rabba follow their lines of reasoning, as another dispute between them was stated with regard to a case in which 1/3 of a firstborn fetus emerged through the wall of the womb, meaning via cesarean section, and then the other 2/3 emerged through the opening of the womb. The halacha is that a fetus is consecrated only if it emerged through the opening of the womb. In this case, the majority did emerge through the opening, but the first majority to emerge was not through the opening. Rav Huna says it is not consecrated. Rabbi says it is consecrated. Rav Huna Omar Eino Kadosh, Rav Huna Tameh. Kadosh, Rabba Amar Kadosh, Rabba Netamed Amar Mikan Uleva Kadosh, The Gemara elaborates. When Rav Huna says it is not consecrated, Rav Huna conforms to his standard line of reasoning. As he says, the firstborn is consecrated retroactively, since the birth consecrates it. And in this case, the first majority that emerged, which defined its birth, was not through the opening of the womb, therefore it was not consecrated. Conversely, when Rabbah says it is consecrated, Rabbah conforms to his standard line of reasoning, as he says, a firstborn is consecrated from that point forward, meaning only once a majority of the fetus has emerged from the opening of the womb. This is because the emergence of a majority of the fetus through the opening of the womb consecrates it, even if that is not the first majority, and in this case, the majority of the animal emerged through the opening of the womb. The Gemara notes, and it is necessary to convey Rav Huna and Rabba's dispute in both of these cases, as had the sages taught us only their dispute with regard to this case, when after 1/3 emerged it was sold to a Gentile, one might have thought that it is only with regard to this case that Rav Huna says the animal is consecrated retroactively. This is because to rule it is consecrated from that point forward would be a leniency, as then the fetus would be exempt from being subject to firstborn status. But with regard to that case, 1/3 emerged through the wall of the womb, where Rabba's opinion would lead to a stringency. One might say that Rav Huna concedes to Rabbah.